All right, good morning. Welcome in. I'm your host, Jeff Pomazal, and welcome to the Sunday morning live stream where we're going to answer all of your start and sit questions for you. Running solo today, so maybe that might be a speedier response to your questions, but it might not be as accurate. So we're going to do the best we can and get you set up this week. Hopefully you're not running up against a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack or Lamar Jackson somewhere in that mix. But if you are, we're definitely going to get you set up right and get you going here on your Sunday morning. We already have football going across the pond, I guess you could say. Got a Germany game going on right now. The Carolina Panthers have a 7-0 lead. So hopefully none of those players are in our questions this morning, but if they are, we'll do the best that we can. So let's get us started this morning. Only Jock in the Village, good friend of the show's on, asking, got to start question, do you start Danielle Hunter or Carl Granderson? Other starts could be Justin Simmons, Brandon Fisk, or Ashawn Robinson over them. 1.5 point tackles, half point for an assist, and 6 for sacks. Danielle Hunter is definitely going to be in my lineup this week, especially with Will Anderson being gone. I think that he has got a great matchup this week. Definitely going to be needed in the absence there. Detroit's going to be a great matchup for him. So Danielle Hunter is for sure in. With that scoring, it'd be really hard to go with Justin Simmons. He's playing a lot of center field right now. Granderson hasn't been playing amazingly well. That Saints team is just in a lot of disarray. Ashawn Robinson is currently playing right now, so unless you have him already in your lineup, I'm actually going to lean Brandon Fisk in this one over Carl Granderson. Fisk just came off his best performance of the season, rookie season. He had 2 sacks last week. I think that he has a great matchup this week as well. So I'm going to fire him up playing against the Miami Dolphins this week. So I'm going to go Danielle Hunter and Ashawn Robinson in this, or sorry, Danielle Hunter and Braden Fisk in this one. Good luck to you, Jack. Hope that helps you out. War Clouds got a couple questions here. Needing one of these linebackers, Ajish Al-Shire, who's coming back off of a knee injury, Dan Henley, and Eric Kendrick. So for me, this isn't actually a pretty easy one. Henley has been on fire. Helps a lot too that they had Junior Colson was put on IR earlier this week, so they don't have that ugly rotation going on for the Chargers this week. Shair coming off an injury always makes me a little skeptical, and Kendricks has an injury designation of his own. He's questionable going into this week with a shoulder injury, so only takes one hit and he's out. So Henley for sure, and then I think he hits that plateau of the 3 bonus points for you with those 10 combined tackles. Next question is Jared Verse or Jeffrey Simmons this week. Here again, it's kind of about a positional lineup for me. I always like to lean to the outside if I can over an interior player. Verse has been playing very, very well. Again, he gets a pretty decent matchup versus the Miami Dolphins. Simmons gets a pretty decent matchup in his own right, but tiebreaker for me is playing on the outside. I'm going to go Jared Verse there for me. So good luck to you, War Clouds. Carter, back on the show. Appreciate you coming in all the time. Needing 2 of these defensive backs, Cameron Bynum, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Quentin Lake, Jalen McLaughlin, Harrison Smith, and TK Smith. A lot of great options here for you. I'm going to be probably leaning a little bit towards Quentin Lake. He had a really nice bounce back game last week for the Rams. Cam Curl has got a little injury designation. He did practice on Friday, so he's probably going to play, but I just like Quentin Lake's alignment lately. He's been playing much better. And then for me, it's a toss-up between TK Smith, who's been playing exceptionally well, or Harrison Smith, who actually has done really, really well. Cameron Bynum is not the player that he was last season for us. McLaughlin is a cool story, but he's been super efficient with his snaps, almost too efficient with the number of snaps that he's playing. So Quentin Lake for me, TK Smith would be my 2, and then Harrison Smith would be my 2B if you really wanted to get a Viking in this week. So Carter's second question has a linebacker question. TJ Edwards, Dorian Williams, KJ Britt, Eric Kendricks. I need 3 of these. So the one I'm not going to play is probably going to be KJ Britt. Britt only played like 51% of snaps last week. We saw a lot of the third linebacker, AJ Russell, which was kind of scary. He had a big jump. He had played almost 40%. So Edwards is always a start. Dorian Williams gets a horrible matchup versus the Colts. Indianapolis Colts, but I still think that matchup is better than KJ Britt's potential 51% snap. So good luck to you, Carter. I know there's a lot of teams on a bye this week. We have 4, so that makes lineup decisions a little bit tougher. Sebastian coming in here, he's got a couple questions about some defensive line and linebackers. First one is about defensive linemen. Khalil Mack, Tuli Totopo, sorry about that one, Arden Key, Montez Sweat, and Zach Allen. So Zach Allen has been playing out of his mind lately. He's been playing some insane, like 85% snap share, so that's fantastic. Sweat coming off an injury and a horrible matchup. I'm not probably going to start him. Khalil Mack has an injury designation. He's questionable. So I guess what we could do here is we could go Zach Allen for sure. And then we could go Khalil Mack. And then if he doesn't play, then you've got Tui Tolopo. But if you're worried about that injury, Arden Key has a really nice matchup. I know that Key is playing against the Chargers there, and the Chargers obviously against the Titans there. And so you got some good options in case you need to pivot there. But Zach Allen for sure for me. And then I'm going to go Khalil Mack unless I hear differently. And then I might pivot to Arden Key. So Sweat would not be my option this week. Tough matchup and coming off that injury. So Sebastian's other question here about the linebackers, looking at needing 2 of these: Overshown, Speed, Jack Campbell, and Sherwood. Pretty sure on Speed here for me. Campbell's been fantastic as of late, getting close to 95% snap share over the last 2 weeks. Overshown might have a great week with Ellis, but man, Sherwood has just been way too consistent to not get in your lineup. So I'm going to go Speed and Sherwood here at your linebacker spot. I really don't think you can go wrong with either of these options. All 4 of them have been playing really, really well, especially with the bye weeks. Those are great options for you to only be able to pick 2. You got to talk to your commissioner about adding a third linebacker spot or a flex spot. PJ saying, hello, thanks for their weekly support. Thank you for coming on and supporting weekly. Which 2 defensive backs would you start? Jalen Jones, Jaleel McLaughlin, or Cooper DeJean? So, like we mentioned before, McLaughlin is playing like super efficient with his snaps, almost too efficient to keep that type of production up. I'm going to go Jalen Johnson with a great matchup versus Buffalo here. I think they're going to throw enough. And Jones has had a really good tackle floor every week. So he's going to be in there for me. And then Cooper DeJean has just been kind of a Swiss Army knife on that Philadelphia Eagles defense. So I'm going to play him this week as well. I like McLaughlin, but just not been a lot of snaps weekly. Just going to pull that up just so I don't misquote anything here. But he has... Yeah, he played 70% of snaps last week, and some of that might have been because of the rotation with Kitchens and Curl. I would have a hard time starting him over those 2 solid floor plays with Jones and DeJean. So, thanks BJ for the question. Fantasy Sports, which 2 should I start? Zach Allen, Danielle Hunter, Keon White, and for the rest of the season, should I drop one of the 3 of them? Zach Allen and Danielle Hunter are the for sure starts this week. Keon White started off amazingly hot for that New England Patriots defense, kind of cooled off a little bit recently. I don't know if we need to drop any of these players. Like they're not not performing poorly enough to where they're not worth a roster spot. Keon White's got a really nice tackle for a week in and week out. Depending on your scoring, but not has had that sack total there. So if you needed to drop one, I would probably go with the Keon White over for sure Danielle Hunter, and then probably Allen too. Like I had mentioned before, Allen is just playing a ton of snaps. He's really high tackle for week in and week out. He had a nice little sack streak there for 5 weeks of the season. So that defense is playing really, really well. So I would keep and start Hunter and Allen this week. If I needed to drop one, it would probably be Keon White. James is asking here this morning, 2 points for a solo, 1 for assist, 2 for a sack. How would you rank Parsons, Sweat, and Daniil Armstrong? I kind of mentioned with Sweat already coming back off the injury, not a great matchup. He would probably be my third. Parsons coming off the injury. That defense definitely needs something, a spark of some kind. Dorrance Armstrong was playing really, really well in relief. So, I'm going to probably have to say Parsons would be my 1, Armstrong would be my 2, and Sweat would be my 3rd this week. Same league, assuming the same type of scoring. I'm going to go Alshire here this week just because of the matchup, but then also his floor is probably a lot higher. He does offer a lot of sack potential too for the Texans. He does have a lot of near the line of scrimmage as a pass rushing specialist. So Alshire's knee is healthy, good to go. He's going to be needed. So I think I'm going to go him and Parsons this week. So best of luck to you, James. Harry's got a question here for linebackers for the rest of the season. Dan Henley, Cashman, Gibbons, Jewell, and Campbell. So some really great options. The one that probably sticks out the most as the outlier is probably Gibbons in there. When given the opportunity, he has done nothing but perform very well for the Tennessee Titans, but also fantasy managers. So he's probably my 5th just because of the unknown. I know that the team did make the trade to trade Ernest Jones to Seattle, and in return got a pick and then Jerome Baker. Baker was inactive last week, but maybe he gets in there this week and then steals Gibbons' snaps. So he would probably be my 5th one. Jewell is probably going to be my 4th just because of the opportunity in Carolina. Trevin Wallace, they kind of cap each other. That team is kind of in disarray. So I'm going to probably have him as my 4th. Cashman is going to be my 3rd just because inconsistency, injuries, and Ivan Pace has just been ultra efficient for the Minnesota Vikings. Campbell's everything that we want him to be right now. Knock on wood that he continues to keep that snap share high and keep playing like he is. And then Henley's probably going to be my best player out of these linebackers. With, like we mentioned, Junior Colson going to IR. Denzel Perryman is also dinged up. He's really locked in right now to be an LB1 the rest of the season. So Dan Henley would be my 1, Campbell 2, Cashman 3, Jewell 4, and Gibbons 5. So thanks for the question, Harry. Hope that helps you out here this morning. Our Sunday morning MVP, I don't know who that is, but BK Broiler needs some help here with a flex. Jan McLaughlin or Jack Gibbons. This is really, really tough because of that whole situation about not knowing if Jack Gibbons is going to be the starter or not. If he is, it's probably Jack Gibbons for sure. The Tennessee Titans do have a decent matchup versus the Chargers, who are going to run the ball quite a bit. Let's see, when do we have game times? I think those are 3:00 games. Again, I appreciate all of your patience this morning. Usually when you have a co-host, you can always kind of banter back and forth a little bit. Yeah, so they play at 3:05 today. We got 3:05 game time for the Tennessee game, and then for the Rams, they play tonight. So I guess the safe play, I guess, here would be wait until we hear the 3:00 announcements. And if Jerome Baker is ruled out, then it's Jack Gibbons all day. But if Jerome Baker is active, then I would pivot to Jalen McLaughlin just because of that unknown with Gibbons. At least with McLaughlin, we're going to get some snaps and some points. If Jerome Baker is out there, we could see Jack Gibbons going back to the bench and getting a 0. So Jerome Baker out, Jack Gibbons in. If Baker is in, then I'm going to pivot to McLaughlin just because can't take those 0s. Which 3 linebackers can I trust? You can't trust any of them. But, wow, that is a tough one. Landman's probably going to be out for me just because I know that Troy Anderson is back, so we don't know the situation or the rotation there. Probably Anderson over Landman. I just was talking about Gibbons and how we don't know for sure, kind of that same situation. Luvu is probably the safest for snaps, but his role in that Washington defense is not what it was last year in Carolina. So his production's probably not there, but his role is probably secure. You can trust that. And Ivan Pace has been amazingly effective with the snaps that he had. He had a great couple games with Cashman out. Cashman looks and sounds like he's returning to the lineup this week, so Pace might go back to that 75, 80% snaps. So that's kind of where we're at. Of the three of them, if I were needing to trust three, I would trust Luvu, Pace, and Anderson probably this week and going forward. Kind of sounds like Anderson was kind of back at practice, kind of taking snaps away from Landman. So that's kind of an ugly situation right away. And, that Gibbons thing is kind of tough too with not knowing if he and or Baker are going to be the LB2 next to Kenneth Murray there. So not sure that was a convincing or trustworthy answer for you, BJ, but we're going to go with Luvu, Pace, and Anderson this week, and then we'll get a little clarity with what happens with Jerome Baker there, and then that rotation in Atlanta. Harry, how do I rank these safeties the rest of the season? Hamlin, Quentin Lake, Newbin, and TK Smith. All right, well, for me, Lake is probably the higher floor, higher ceiling play. Newbin is super consistent. He doesn't do anything flashy. He doesn't have any picks or sacks or anything like that. That's not his role on the defense. He is a more mid-center fielder, just soaking up tackles, and he has been doing a great job with that. So he's a really high safe floor. Smith has been fantastic for the Buccaneers. A little worried that when Winfield came back that he was going to kind of lose some snaps, but he hasn't. He's been playing really, really well. He had a really great game last week. And then DeMar Hamlin, really cool story. Everything that's going on there, but he's just not flashy for me. So if I were to rank these four players, I would go probably Quentin Lake, TK Smith, Tyler Newbin, and DeMar Hamlin rest of season. I think a combination with Newbin in there and either a Lake or Smith. So you have your high floor, high ceiling with Lake and Smith, and then you have your really high safe floor, probably not a high ceiling with Newbin. And then that kind of provides you with a really good lineup week in and week out. So best of luck to Harry. That's a fantastic safety room there too. Which two should I start? Foye Oluokun, Dan Henley, and Cashman. Oluokun and Henley all day. It looks like Jacksonville's starting to figure things out, like they don't need to rotate linebackers as much. The first linebacker anyway, Foye. The second linebacker spot's a little up for grabs, but Foye sounds like he's the recipient of most of the targets there. So we're going to keep him in on our snaps. And then Dan Henley, like we mentioned, Denzel Perryman's banged up. Junior Colson just went to IR. Cashman's coming off an injury of his own, and he's got Ivan Pace there. So I'm going to go Oluokun and Henley pretty easily for me. So thanks for the question, Skywalker. Moose Jaw, Brian Branch, or Antonio Winfield Jr. Both great options. I don't know if there's a wrong one here. I feel like Branch is going to be really fired up this week after getting tossed in last week's game. So I'm probably going to lean Branch here a little bit more so just because of the added incentive for him to come back and play. Tampa Bay gets San Francisco this week, which is surprisingly isn't a great option, but San Francisco's offense this week might look a little different now that Christian McCaffrey might be back in. So that might be a little bit of a bump to those defensive players on Tampa. Deebo Samuel's supposed to be back and healthy, so that helps them out as well. And then Houston is supposed to get back Nico Collins, which might help that defense, which that could be a good one here too. I'm probably going to lean Branch just because of the matchup against Houston. I think that's going to be a shootout game, a lot of opportunity there for Branch to make plays in the run game and in the pass game. And then just that added factor of him kind of coming back and proving after a disappointing for his team and also fantasy manager. So good question, Musha. Appreciate it. Morning, Rogue Guru. Thank you. Trent McDuffie or Quentin Lake? It's got to be Quentin Lake for me. McDuffie is kind of on that island on the outside. Not seeing that slot corner position like we saw last year. Lake is kind of getting that a little bit more. He does play a little bit of safety, but we see both of the other safeties for the Rams kind of dinged up. So Quentin Lake is 100% snap guy, and we really can't replace that. That's the end all be all for us there. So Quentin Lake for me. So Ari wants to know Vita Vea or Will McDonald for week 10. So Vita Vea was just a wrecking crew last week. It just seemed like he was in on every single play. Just want to look at McDonald's snap share for both weeks, just because of that. Now with Hassan Reddick in town, he's going to start to eat a few more snaps each week. So, yeah, Hassan Reddick has jumped from 39% to 57%. Probably more. Michael Clemens is probably the one that's losing snaps because of that. So I'm probably going to lean Vita Vea this week. San Francisco is a really good matchup for defensive linemen. Saw that he was a pretty hot play last week. He's kind of on that heater there. The Jets, they have a matchup this week versus the Cardinals, which are somewhat disappointing for defensive linemen. Kyler Murray's got a lot of escapability, and so I think that he is a little bit tougher to bring down. So I'm gonna lean Vita Vea this week just because of the matchup, and then also because of playing so well lately. So best of luck to you. There's our Ecto Cooler of the week. Jason, welcome back. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. With Roseboom popping up on the injury report, should I go with Kenneth Murray instead? I think so. The nice thing is they're playing each other, so you can kind of have that opportunity with kind of pivoting to the other one. I do think Kenneth Murray is probably a little bit safer floor this week than Roseboom, even if he is healthy. So I'm going to go with Murray here. And I probably wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over it. I think they're both kind of like those low-end LB2s, high-end LB3s this week for you. So I do like the Rams offense better than the Titans offense. I know that Will Levis will be back under center for the Titans this week, so who knows what that offense is going to look like. At least with Mason Rudolph running it the other day, or last couple of weeks, we saw some consistency. They were able to move the ball. We didn't see that a lot with Will Levis under center. So I'm going to go Kenneth Murray against the Rams offense this week. So yeah, so Fantasy Sports asking a question here about Foye Oluokun playing out of position last week. So last year he was playing the Mike spot almost exclusively and playing it every single snap, and that's why we saw this just gaudy numbers from him every game last week. And so this year they've been on a rotation, and then he got hurt, and now he's kind of playing on the outside of the weak side spot, so he's not playing in that same position that he saw last year. And some of that is just run scheme, trying to get Devin Lloyd in, trying to utilize their players more. So, so he's not playing out of position so much. He's just than he was last year. So this year he's just kind of playing on that weak side. So he did have a fantastic start, and then he, like you said, he cooled off. And then I think it was just more of a scheme or the flow of the game. They weren't running to the outside. They were kind of running more into the middle. That's where Devin Lloyd was able to get more tackles. So I wouldn't read too much into it. He had a great game. He'll continue to have great games. I know that this week he's got a decent matchup. Who's he playing? Playing against the Vikings. So you should see a lot of Aaron Jones on the outside covering Hawkinson, coming off the line there a little bit. So expecting a pretty good game for Foye Oluokun. So he's probably going to be safely in that linebacker one conversation this week. I know that his snaps have been really consistent since he came back from the injury. So those are good things to see and have. So we're going to fire him up without any question. So appreciate the question. Moving on here. Thank you. Perfect. Hope that helps you out. DJ Wavy wants to know Hunter or Kincaid. Throwing in a little tight end question. Kincaid. I'm assuming that's Hunter Henry and Dalton Kincaid. Yeah, it's got to be Kincaid. He's been Keon Coleman has been ruled out for this game for the Buffalo Bills. I think that by de facto, then Kincaid becomes the number one target there. This seems like a great James Cook week too, if you're into that sort of thing. So what's going on, Sheila? How are you? Got to start 2 in a PPR. Lad McConkey BJ or Brian Thomas Jr., Jameson Williams, Josh Downs, or Odunze. Got to start two in a PPR. I'm thinking it's probably going to have to be Downs and Ladd here just because we don't know what that Jacksonville Jaguars offense is going to look like without Trevor Lawrence under center. JMO is probably not a PPR. He's more of a big play threat. Odunze might be. He's been starting to kind of pop here a little bit as of late. So I could see a scenario where if you don't like Ladd or Downs, that Odunze gets in there. But as in a PPR, I think that Downs for sure is going to get peppered with targets. I think that Ladd McConkey is probably going to be there too. So I'm going to lean those two, Downs and Ladd. And then if you don't like those two, then I could see Odunze get in there. Brian Thomas just scares me this week without Trevor Lawrence under center. I don't know what that offense is going to look like. And then JMO coming off the suspension. He's probably going to be 3-4 targets and then relying on one big play to make it happen. So not my PPR flavor. All right. One more, my friend. Absolutely. Kendricks or Sherwood. I'm going to go Sherwood. Kendricks has that shoulder injury, and I'm just a little nervous about if he plays, one play he's in, one play he's out. So I know that those shoulder injuries always have a way of kind of flaring back up, and he's still questionable. Sherwood has just been playing too well, too much. I don't think Sherwood has missed a snap since he's played 97+% in every game since week 3. So ever since CJ Mosley's kind of injury kind of flared up, Sherwood has just been super reliable. So there's no reason not to play him. So does injuries help Taysom Hill value? Oh, absolutely. This offense is literally going to go through Kamara and Taysom Hill. They put Chris Olave on IR this week, or just like yesterday or on Friday. They have 0 pass catchers. Everybody that they have is banged up. So Taysom Hill is probably going to be a safe like tight end 6 rest of the season, I would say, in a PPR. He's going to get those goal line looks. He's going to get those cheap chunk passes and things like that in the passing game, but then he's also going to be the recipient on passing games because there's literally no one else there. So I like Taysom Hill as probably a safe high floor tight end 6 rest of the year. And in a year when tight end has been such a roller coaster, heading into your fantasy playoffs with someone who's consistently going to be scoring for you is vital. So I like Taysom Hill a lot. So Cohen wants to know AJ Speed or Ivan Pace at linebacker. I'm going to go EJ Speed, who is AJ Speed's brother. Ivan Pace is fantastic, super efficient, but with Cashman coming back, we're probably not going to see the snap floor or the high floor that we have seen with him. Speed gets a great matchup this week versus Buffalo. Could see a lot of run game here between Ray Davis, a lot of run game with James Cook. Could be covering a lot of Dalton Kincaid, who we just mentioned. So I really like EJ Speed this week. So great option. On a bench spot, should I keep Rashid White or drop him for Pacheco? Do you think Pacheco returns this season? I do think Pacheco returns this season. He's looking at probably like a week 12, week 13 return. The hard, ugly part is coming off that injury. He's going to take a week or two to get ramped up. Kareem Hunt has done amazingly well for that offense. I don't think it's just a simple like Kareem Hunt goes to the bench and doesn't do anything. I think White is probably the beneficiary here. A lot of having 2 wide receivers for Tampa Bay go down with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Evans is supposed to return in week 12, so that'll change things a little bit. But I think White is definitely the keep here. I don't know if Pacheco returns and is what we wanted Pacheco to be, especially coming off the injury. And then with Kareem Hunt doing Kareem Hunt things, he's done nothing to like say, Pacheco, here's the job back. So, appreciate that. Thanks, Chili. I hope to see you back here all the time. And thank you for the likes and subscriptions too. Those are fantastic to hear. We love hearing that, especially in week 10. You know, we get a lot of love in the beginning part of the season. As the season goes on, people fall out because they're out of the playoffs, make some trades and things like that. So Yes. Kendry Miller is a fantastic story. And now with Dennis Allen being fired, we probably kind of see like he kind of gets out of the principal's office and might get a chance. We just kind of mentioned with the Taysom Hill kind of thing with no one else there. Once Kendry Miller returns from IR, he could be a play just to kind of see what the Saints have in him. New coaching staff, new philosophy. He definitely could be there. Yeah, when he came out of TCU, he was probably drafted as probably like the third or fourth running back in dynasty leagues in those years. So I think he's just a matter of opportunity. And now that he's out of Dennis Allen's doghouse, I think he does have a chance to play. So CHB wants to know he needs to start two of these: Dante Fowler, Brian Young, or Highsmith. Dante Fowler is on a roll lately. He's got like a sack in 4 of his last 5 games, playing extremely well. And then Highsmith is coming back. I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers just traded for Preston Smith before the trade deadline. They get Nate Herbig back, and of course they have TJ Watt is there. But I think that rotation is just amazingly efficient to keep them all healthy and just high motor snaps. So I'm going to go with Dante Fowler and Highsmith here just because of the high floor and the high potential every week with that. So Byron Young is fantastic. I just don't think he has the upside that Dante Fowler and Highsmith offer week in and week out. So, yep, absolutely. Yep. New to show, wondering running backs about Monte, Ramondre, or Roddy White. Daniel, not really sure about the like if it's all touchdown heavy, what you get for touchdowns and things like that here. But for me, it's probably going to be Monte and Ramondre this week. White's a great PPR option for you, but I think the rushing floor and the touchdown potential is really, really high with Monte and Ramondre. Until last week, I think Monte had 6 or 7 games in a row with a touchdown. And I think he gets going back to that this week. The Lions just want to run the ball. They want to, bite in the kneecaps and stuff like that. So we're gonna stick with Monte and Ramondre. White's a great option as like a bye week flex person, especially in a PPR. But I just don't think he has the touchdown potential that the other two do have. So, yep. So fantastic stuff there. You are most welcome. Most welcome. Hey, Corey, what's up, man? I need 2 of these 5. I can't decide for shite. Tank Dell, Josh Downs, Brian Thomas Jr., Drake London, or Puka. If this is a PPR, I'm probably going to lean Drake London and Puka. If it's kind of big play touchdown only, I'm probably going to lean London and Tank Dell. I'm not sure that Nico Collins is back this week 100%. I just think that with him coming back, it'll draw some attention, and I think that opens the door a little bit for Tank Dell a little bit to maybe get big play. But if it's a PPR league, I'm definitely going to go with London and Puka just because of the floor. And like we saw with Brian Branch's thing, he got kicked out of a game. Puka got tossed from a game for throwing punches and stuff like that. So I think he's going to come back a little bit to prove. We know that the offense kind of runs through Cooper Kupp, but we've seen Stafford be able to support easily two wide receivers in that offense. So, and I think this will be kind of a low-key shootout game. They get the Miami Dolphins this week, so I think that's a potential high-scoring game. So, getting some help there. Yeah, so I know that you're bringing up a good point here with London with his the hip pointer and stuff like that. He practiced all week, limited fashion, early to start the week. He did get a full practice in at the end of the week. So I'm definitely going to lean London here just because of the high upside with the floor. But if you're worried about the hip pointer, I would go Puka and Josh Downs and probably not lose any sleep over it. Both of those are great options. I think with last week, we saw not a very good turnout for the Colts offense just because of the high pressure rate. If you watch that game, Joe Flacco was like literally getting a snap and then he had someone in his lap. So he didn't get any time to throw and stuff like that. And I think this week is probably a little bit different with Buffalo. So I think that he gets an opportunity to throw. And then we've seen Josh Downs be the recipient of many of those targets going forward. So London and Puka for me, but if you're questioning London's hip at all, then Downs is a great third option there. So maybe a 2B option. We'll go with that. So best of luck to you, Corey. Fantasy sports, does a player need to start a position to get eligibility? Wondering if Taysom Hill in New Orleans can get wide receiver eligibility. Usually what has to happen, and from my experience, is they have to play a certain number of snaps at a position to be eligible there. And sometimes the whatever format you're playing on, whether it's Yahoo or Sleeper or whatever, they don't always update those frequently. They probably do it at the beginning of the season, and then they kind of set it for the year. So I doubt that Taysom Hill is probably going to get a change in designation this year, being that we're already in week 10. He sees most of his snaps at tight end or running backs or quarterback, so he's probably not going to be able to add that fourth position eligibility there. So Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, McBride are the Cardinals are cursed. I don't know if they're necessarily cursed. I just think they're a team that's really trying to rebuild right now. They've spent so much capital on the offensive pieces. You know, they invested highly in Benson. They've got McBride. They obviously invested pretty highly in Marvin Harrison. And I think that they're just a team that has been trying to piece together offensive line and defensive line. And as a result, they haven't been able to really make a push. And so I think that once that team decides and get some healthy pieces on the interior offensive line and on defensive line, I think they'll start to be a little more sustainable. Last week, I think it was just a weird week. They just ran the ball super efficiently against the Bears. They had like 3 rushing touchdowns against the Bears. And so Murray didn't really needed to throw very much. And when he did, Marvin Harrison was not the target of that. So I still like them the rest of the season. I think that Kyler Murray is probably easily a top 12 quarterback the rest of the way. Dynasty, he's probably pushing that 8 range for me. Marvin Harrison, I think, is just, the rookie learning curve. And McBride is amazing. He's probably arguing for the tight end 1 in Dynasty. I know that Bowers is probably making a case for that, but he's only in his second year. McBride is, so loving that. The annual or the weekly Gernard versus Van Ginkel question. So, Andrea, this is always a tough one just because you're looking at efficiency with Gernard, and then you look at production with Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel is one of those guys that can, on one play, can like just win you a week. He had the sacks, the fumbles, the interception returns for a touchdown. Gernard, though, is very consistent with efficiency, getting pressures. He just hasn't been able to finish those sacks. This week they get Jacksonville, which probably means that it's going to be more of a Van Ginkel game for me, just because there's going to be an opportunity for a play to be made, whether it's a sack, fumble, those kind of things. So I'm gonna lean Van Ginkel here, just over the opportunity, because I don't know if the Jacksonville's offense is going to sustain a lot of drives, which gives Gernard an opportunity. But we just need that one flash play from Van Ginkel to make it happen. So, yeah. So Brian Robinson Jr. Has been really dinged up as of late. He's playing on a really good offense, so I really like him as far as like an RB2 flex option on teams. I don't know if the Commanders will be in a position to draft a running back right like there. I think they have too many needs. I know that they're trying to shore up their secondary. I know that that's why they made the trade for Marshawn Lattimore. They did give away quite a bit of draft capital to get him, so I don't know if they have the resources to draft one of those running backs. Genty is probably going to be a top 10 pick, so I don't see the Commanders having an opportunity to draft him there. And then when the Marshawn Lattimore trade went through, they did give up quite a few of their pieces. So I don't know if they're necessarily going to be in the drafting department when it comes time to the draft. They have too many other needs. Cornerback comes to mind. They do need to have some more defensive line help. They're kind of piecemealing that all together this season. and Dan Quinn is definitely getting the most out of his players. So we're gonna hold off on Brian Thomas is probably a sell high. I'm gonna probably keep him as an RB2 once he gets healthy. That offense is a great place for him to be. This is a really tough one because half point PPR with Kincaid and Taysom Hill. I'm gonna go Taysom Hill here just because of the high floor. New Orleans does get the Falcons this week, so potential shootout. I know that they're gonna have to be probably going to be playing from behind. The Saints will be, and so I think that he'll get a lot of opportunities to go there. Buffalo gets Indianapolis, which kind of could be a weird game script. So I don't know if Buffalo is going to be throwing a ton. They could be running a lot, but I know that with Coleman out, Kincaid becomes much more viable. Half point PPR. I'm going to go Taysom Hill here. I just think that rushing floor, he's going to probably for sure vulture a touchdown from Kamara today. So we're going to go Taysom Hill. They would have had Algier a month before. Yep. Yeah, there's just been so many instances where teams have traded up and not sure why teams have done what they did. Atlanta's doesn't maybe have the best track record for drafting success. This year they could have had easily a defensive line piece that definitely could have helped them out. And then they decided to go with a quarterback who hasn't. And now that they have a lot of woes on that defensive line still, even after making the trade with the Patriots to get what's his name? Matt Judon. Yeah. So after they made the trade, they didn't really help their problems out at all. So yeah, McLaughlin could be the new Chico for the Rams at defensive back. I know that last week Cameron Curl only played 50% of snaps, so that's probably more of why we saw a lot of snaps from McLaughlin last week. Prior to that game, McLaughlin hadn't played a snap. Cameron Kitchens only played 50% of snaps, although he did have a couple interceptions and returned one for a touchdown. So he's probably maybe a stash for me right now, but I'm not super convinced that he's going to be the new one there. They just have this heavy rotation there. That Lake and that Cameron Curl are going to be there if they're healthy. And then it kind of goes into, okay, is it McLaughlin week? Is it a Kitchens week? So it just could be a really frustrating situation if you're trying to decide. So, but if Cameron Curl is ruled out for some reason, I know that he was dealing with some, what did he have? He did practice fully on Friday. He's dealing with kind of a quad injury. So that could be, I guess if Cameron Curl is ruled out, I could see a situation where I'm rolling out McLaughlin, but I need to see another week or two. He only played 70%. So it's not like he's playing all of the snaps. And that's what we need to see out of our defensive backs, 100% snaps. So, all right. PJ needs to know, need a sleeper defensive back, who to pick up today. So kind of looking at the matchups for the defensive backs, Kirby Joseph would be a great, fantastic sleeper. Quentin Lake could be one there for you. TK Smith might be an option for you with Tampa Bay. Trying to think. Jordan Battle they already played, so that doesn't help you out any. PJ Locke is healthy and he's playing again for Denver, so the team might have dropped. So a manager might have dropped him after being inactive last week. Beanie, the kid for Pittsburgh, had 2 interceptions last week. Beanie Bishop has been playing a lot more as of late. He's closing in on over 80% snaps the last 3 games. So he might be like a deep option there for you. Just trying to think of other players. Hopefully those will be there. PJ, if you want to send a screenshot or something or throw off some names that are on the waivers, I'd be happy to help you out there. It's kind of tough just to shoot from the hip with those, not knowing the size of the league and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I kind of talked about this earlier with Chris Olave. I think that he is definitely a hold in a 10-team league. especially Dynasty. If it's a Dynasty league, definitely holding. If it's a redraft league, I'm dropping. I don't see a situation where Olave comes back and plays this year. There's no reason for the team to put him out there. He's had 4 concussions over his career and 2 this year. So I'm really thinking that he's shut down for the season. If he does return, it's going to, not be until the fantasy playoffs. And then are you really going to trust a player who hasn't played for 4 weeks coming off concussions with your fantasy playoffs at stake? So I'm going to probably say in a redraft, I'm dropping, but Dynasty, I'm definitely holding and seeing encouraging things that will come back. So. Yeah, just more of the same of the things that they're doing. So, thanks for answering my last question. Last week, Van Ginkel wasn't very solid at IDP option. Do you think that changes this week? Yeah, and so again, Van Ginkel is very boom or bust when it comes to the plays, and I think it's just more dependent on who they're playing, the offense that they're playing. If we kind of look at the breakdown of the Minnesota Vikings and their defensive line, their defensive players here, you can kind of see that Grenard has just been amazingly efficient. He has 36 pressures, but only has turned 7 of those into sacks, whereas Van Ginkel has 11 pressures and has turned 5 of those into sacks. So Van Ginkel is just super, almost too efficient with his production. And so I could see a world if you want a safe play to go with Grenard. But Van Ginkel just offers that huge, insane ceiling every week. We've seen him intercept a pass and return it for a touchdown. We've seen fumble recoveries and things like that. So I wouldn't fault you. I guess, Ari, it depends on your lineup matchup this week. If you're in a position where you're chasing points, maybe you did play against Lamar Jackson, Burrow, or Chase this week, and you're looking for a home run. Maybe Van Ginkel's your answer because you're going to try to answer a home run with a home run. But if you're off to a great start, your opponent's not a very strong matchup for you this week. Maybe you're favored. Maybe Grenard is your call this week. Just if you kind of look at your matchup and kind of decide from there. So I appreciate the follow-up question. Yeah, they're definitely in a rebuild. They just happen to be in a division where being 500 makes you a playoff team. The Rams are definitely down. The Seahawks are definitely a team that's down. The Rams are kind of not really sure what their identity is. So they're just kind of in a division where they're 500. It makes you look better than you really are. So Brian was offered Fred Warner for my Devontae Smith thoughts. Smith was wide receiver 4-5 and I've streamed linebacker this year minus Bernard. It's always tough to give up an offensive piece for a defensive piece, especially in a league where, so if you're starting Devontae Smith as your wide receiver 4-5, Fred Warner is probably one of the few players that you could probably make this trade for and feel good about it. If I'm not counting on Smith every week and your other starting wide receivers are going to be pretty solid, and you don't have any questions about them, I could make this trade because Warner is going to be set it and forget it type of player. If just curious with your wide receivers, I have a similar situation. I thought CeeDee Lamb was going to be locked solid the rest of the season, and now with Dak Prescott going down, does that take the little luster off him? Is he still going to get the volume that he needs? He probably doesn't have the ceiling games, but is he still serviceable as like a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2? And so that would be my question, Brian, is do you feel really, really strong about your wide receivers 1, 2, 3? There's no doubt every week who's playing. Then I could go ahead and make this trade because then Warner's going to be, you're set and forget it. He legit could be the LB1 rest of the season. Not a LB1, but the LB1. Khalil Mack is still questionable. Haven't heard any updates. And unfortunately, with them playing the late game, the 3:00 game, we probably won't hear anything until that 2:00 time. He does have a groin injury. He was unable to practice all week. But Friday did kind of make it sound like he was going to be able to play, those are those really scary injuries that like all it takes is one play. We saw Jordan Love come back probably a week too soon and then kind of re-injure himself a little bit on a couple of plays where he was kind of hobbling. So, and I just think that he's in a position where he needs to be very 100% to be efficient, because he can't be like 50% at that position. You need to be able to have that explosiveness, and having a groin injury really zaps that explosiveness. So, I don't know, CHB, if you have other options that you can pivot to, or if you have players on the waiver that we could kind of take a look at. But I would be a little hesitant right now at almost 10 o'clock deciding if I needed to start Khalil Mack or not. McConkey or Shakir? Shakir for me this week. I think that, with Keon Coleman out, Shakir is like Josh Allen's safety blanket when it comes to receiving. And like you said, in a full PPR, that makes it so much easier for me to decide that. Yeah, so Khalil Shakir for sure heading into this week. Yeah, so the reason that Damani Richardson all of a sudden has zero production this week is because now they have a healthy secondary. Earlier this week, they were rolling through the practices, and Xavier Woods obviously was there, but Nick Scott came back to full time, and so now with Nick Scott being back full time, it sent Damani Richardson back to the bench. So, so Richardson isn't going to see anything this week probably, unless there's a blowout or an injury, because we saw a healthy Nick Scott. So that's what the fickle thing about IDP is. It's all about opportunity. Richardson was a great play for a week or two, and then all of a sudden, like, situation changes, and we need that 100% snap share to make ourselves relevant. What do I think of Elijah Moore and Judy dynasty-wise? The Browns are just a hot mess right now. The only pass catcher I really feel solid about there is Njoku. It's really tough, too, because we don't know the quarterback situation. Is this going to be a team that finally moves on from Deshaun Watson? Do they draft a quarterback? So if that's the case, I like Judy probably a little bit more just because of the profile and all the metrics coming out of college. Elijah Moore could be a great flex or a great slot receiver too in the league. So I think they're probably both holds right now, probably maybe a buy low, probably more of an emphasis on Judy for me than for Elijah Moore, just with that pedigree. Barton or Kendrick's not sure about his injury. I'm firing up Cody Barton. I know that he had kind of a lackluster game last week, but he does get Kansas City this week, who is one of the better options for linebackers going into the league. Into the week, they offer just over 20 tackle opportunities per game to linebackers, and so I think Barton is going to see a ton of Kareem Hunt. We see that the Chiefs are very persistent on running. Kareem Hunt has had like over 20 carries per game over the last like 3 games. And so I think Barton is going to be the recipient of that. And he's the 100% snap guy. Ever since Alex Singleton went down with his injury back in week 2, we've seen Cody Barton be 100% snap guy since then. Like week 3, 100% snap since week 4. So he's out there. He's 100%. We're going to go with it. Brian Branch or Budda Baker rest of the season. I don't think there's a wrong answer here, JK. Personally, I like Brian Branch just because of his role. He just seems to be that jackknife. He's all over the field, that Swiss Army knife for the Detroit Lions. Budda Baker has had a resurgence this season, but his role on the defense is just a little bit different than Branch. I like where Branch plays more in that slot spot, that down towards the line of scrimmage. And we've seen Budda Baker kind of be in a rotation with Jalen Thompson on the outside. So gonna go with Branch there. If we're looking at linebackers for New England, so Christian Ellis was kind of a cheat code for a couple weeks. He had that defensive line designation, which was really, really nice for a lot of us. So obviously it's probably going to be Jelani Tavai, and then we probably will see a lot of Sayon Takitaki for the Patriots today. Probably Tavai is the safe play there, so he's probably going to be close to 100% with all of the shenanigans that are going on in New England. What does New England have for a matchup today? I think they got the Bears. So I'm not running out if I have to start a New England linebacker. I'm probably okay not doing that. But if I have to start one, I'm probably going with Tavai for sure. And then probably going Seo Taki. It'll be interesting to see if Duggar is healthy, because he could easily slide into that like second linebacker role, or if Marte Mapu might be the play there too. So could be interesting. Brian asking, need to start one this week and drop 2 of them. So, all right. So of these 3, 4, and then drop 2 out of them. Personally, I've never been a Tremaine Edmonds guy. I know that he is drafted really early. He was like 19 when he got drafted, and he played decently well in Buffalo, high draft capital and stuff like that. But he just never has been the guy that's been super flashy for me. I really like Terrell Dodson. A little of his shine has been taken off now that we see Ernest Jones there, and so. But Dodson's played 100% of snaps. So we don't have to worry about him. So I'm keeping him. This is really tough because I want to say Cashman and Dodson, and cut Edmonds and Pace, but Cashman not being deemed healthy yet kind of makes me worried. And then Pace, losing those snaps when Cashman does come back. Pace was a little dinged up himself with a little knee injury. He did practice fully on Friday. Seattle is on a bye this week, so obviously Dodson is out. Tremaine Edmonds or the Bears, they have. Well, I'm probably going to lean this week then of those options. Let's go with let's start Tremaine Edmonds this week versus the Patriots, who are probably going to run quite a bit. Let's keep Dodson, and then let's get rid of the 2 headaches in Pace and Cashman. And then what I would try to do then is next week try to re-add Cashman after the week, because then you're going to start Dodson and Cashman. And if you can't do that move, then I would start Cashman and Edmonds. So starting Edmonds this week, dropping the Minnesota Vikings linebackers, and then next week you're going to be rolling out Dodson the rest of the way. So hope that helps, Brian. Sorry for the long-winded answer. Aloha Gilman or Amani Hooker. I'm going to go Hooker this week. I think he gets a really nice matchup. Chargers are going to run the ball. They've got both of their running backs back now. Gus Edwards was off of IR. I think Herbert's been getting a little healthier and starting to throw the ball a little bit more. We've seen Quentin Johnson become a thing now. We've seen Ladd McConkey start to do some things now. And so I think that offense is starting to kind of get healthy and click a little bit better. So I'm going to go with Amani Hooker. I'm just really fearful of that Tennessee offense, so what it's going to look like with Will Levis back under center. So I can pivot to Brian Young instead of Khalil. That groin injury is concerning. Yes. And Brian Young's not a terrible pivot. You can kind of see about 3:00, 2:00 today if Khalil Mack is cleared, ready to roll. And then if he is, then I'm probably going to start Khalil Mack, just because if he's healthy enough to be active, he's gonna play. They're not going to put a player out there at 50 or 75%. So I'm going to lean Khalil, and then you have a great option in Brian Young if you need a pivot. So we all miss things, Jason. Don't worry about it. It's one of those things that especially in week 10, we got so many injuries. We got 4 teams on a bye. We've got injuries galore, like the rotations and stuff like that. It's crazy right now. Herb wants to know full PPR, Hunter Henry or Laporta. And so here we are, week 10. If you would have asked this question in, week 1 or 2, people would have been like, what are you even talking about? But here we are, week 10, we see, Hunter Henry has been quietly super consistent. He has 4 games in a row where he has double-digit points. We haven't seen those options, the wide receiver options in New England, really take off. Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk. It's been Hunter Henry. And so as tough as this sounds, again, Herb, this is kind of about matchup dependent. If you're chasing points, if you need a home run, you got to go Sam Laporta. But if you're in a pretty good spot, you need a high floor or a high safe floor, I'm going to go Hunter Henry because he's really been the focal point of that offense. He's gotten 9 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. He's double-digit points in 4 of his last 4 games. Just super consistent. And like we said before, being consistent at a very inconsistent position is what we need. And so I'm going Hunter Henry here for me, unless I'm chasing. Unless I was playing against Jackson Burrow or Chase from Thursday night, I think Hunter Henry is the safe play here. Starting Montez Sweat and Quinnen Williams at defensive line. Also have Dante Fowler, Golston, or DeMarcus Walker on my bench. Would you swap out one of them or drop for anyone? Montez Sweat worries me just a little bit with coming off the injury and having the poor matchup. Dante Fowler has been on a heater lately, so he would probably be my play there. I would probably go Quinnen Williams and Dante Fowler myself, Phil. The other options don't probably make me feel strong enough to bench one of them. The only play I would have would be Sweat for Fowler. And I just want to check on one thing here. Yeah, and like we mentioned, Arizona is not a great matchup for opposing defensive linemen, so I'm probably going to lean Fowler there. Pittsburgh is a great matchup for Washington and defensive linemen. They offer 21 points a game to opposing defensive linemen. So, yeah, let's do that. Let's go Dante Fowler and Quinnen Williams this week. Keon White or Zach Zeiler. Zeiler's kind of questionable. He's got that orbital issue. We've had more orbital bone fractures and cracks this year than I ever remember. Him and Kyle Van Noy also had one. Miami has the Rams, which is in the middle of the road matchup. The Bears are a bottom matchup. So I'm going to go, this is tough. Tough. I'm going to go Zach Zeiler here. Just the higher floor, and I think probably a little bit better opportunity to get snaps. That Bears offense, but that all it takes is one play by Keon White. And no, we're going to stick with it. We're going to stick with Zach Zeiler. Miami Dolphins playing against the Rams. Let's do it. Lock it in. Good luck to you, MDH. Yeah. And so, in this, Phil, we kind of talked about this a little bit too. This is just like an embarrassment of riches. Sometimes fantasy managers have all the nice things, and Tampa Bay right now has an amazing secondary. They drafted really, really well, and it makes it a little maddening week in and week out. Thankfully, they've had kind of a good rotation between injuries and things like that, with Winfield being hurt, and then Whitehead stepped up. And then Christian Inzian played a little slot corner spot. Now TK Smith is coming back. He's playing really, really well off of his injury. So I think they're all pretty relevant this season for Tampa. And I think that, like you had mentioned, Inzian is probably the one that's the one that will lose out on snaps just because of draft capital and contracts, but also performance on the field. So they probably all should be rostered right now in dynasty leagues. But like with any of them, if I'm being offered anything for any defensive back, probably at any time outside of maybe a handful of them, Brian Branches, Hamilton, those type of players, I'm quick to move on. We've just seen the turnover at the position be way too much, way too frequently to warrant holding on to any of those like those fringe players. 2 years ago, Jalen Petrie was the number one defensive lineman or defensive back, and then he went and was just ghosted the league. He just disappeared. He's kind of making a little bit of a return this season, but if you could have got a second or a third for Jalen Petrie after that season, those are the type of players you need to cash in on. And I see that these players are in that same mold. If I can cash in on a Whitehead season or a TK Smith season, I'm doing it. So dynasty wise, they should be rostered, but again, if you can get anything for them, I'm slapping the accept button. I need to play 2, Ryan, here. He's got Terrell Bernard, Jack Campbell, and Bond. So, man, the Colts offense is just scary. A bottom play for linebackers right now. So Campbell's in for sure for me. I think that his snap percentage has gone up to a safe spot for me, so he can be kind of trusted. And then Bond, I really want to play because of the big play potential and things like that, but I think they get kind of a tough matchup this week. I don't know what that Dallas offense is really going to look like. We're going to see a little Cooper Rush this week. Rico Dowdle is probably healthy to play, so that definitely will help the run game. I think with the matchup, I'm going to have to sit Bernard here, Ryan. I think I'm going to have to go Jack Campbell and Zach Bond just because of the play there. That game script could get really, really ugly for Bernard here. So, all right, Kevin, you got a question here. Thank you for your efforts. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate that. It's getting close to Hassan Reddick's start time. Other options are Keon White, Jalen Carter, and Khalil Mack. So Hassan Reddick, obviously after the holdout with contract stuff, he got a new agent. Didn't take long. We kind of got him in on there. And so we're looking now. Hassan Reddick has played 39% of snaps and 57% of snaps. He's getting close to that. He's probably going to take another step forward again this week. I'm definitely playing him over Keon White this week. Jalen Carter is close. Khalil Mack is close. But with that injury designation to Khalil Mack, you know what? This might be a Khalil Mack week for you. Looking at the other options there, like I said, that Dallas is kind of a tough one there with Jalen Carter. How much is that offense going to be out on the field? The Cowboys are kind of a bottom tier team for opposing defensive linemen anyway. Khalil Mack's injuries designation kind of has me a little worried. That groin stuff is no joke. But the Cardinals aren't a great matchup either for the Jets. Do the Jets play early today? If they do. Oh, perfect. Okay, so the Jets play late. So this is what we're going to do here. We're going to go with Khalil Mack as our starter this week, unless we hear that he is out or at all limited. And then I'm going to pivot to Hassan Reddick. Both of those games are in the 3 o'clock window. So we're going to go Khalil Mack this week, Hassan Reddick as a pivot option just because of the timing of that. So good luck to you, Kevin. Maybe we'll have a little more clarity on what Hassan Reddick, if we'll see him continue to trend. If he gets closer to that 70% snap share, then he's definitely going to be the option. But we're not quite there yet with the snap share, and Arizona is not a great matchup for opposing defensive linemen. So 2 strikes for me on Reddick. Ryan needs to play 2 of these 4 players. So Van Ginkel, Reddick, Keon White, or Jared Verse. I think we're going to have to go with the bookends here. The V boys here. We're going to go Van Ginkel and Verse. I think that the floor is there. Keon White just hasn't been producing very well for the Patriots as of late. We just kind of outlined why Reddick isn't our option right now, snap share and opponent. Van Ginkel's, like we've mentioned many times today already, he's got that option. I know Jacksonville's not a high floor play, but all it takes is 1 play for him. And then Verse playing against Miami is kind of a middle of the road matchup for us. And I think we're going to get a good Jared Verse week here. Yeah, the Bears aren't a good matchup for Keon White. Yeah, so we're going to go Van Ginkel and Verse here. So best of luck to you, Ryan. Thank you. We love the show too. Thank you for saying that. And if you guys wouldn't mind, if you're still in here, hit the like button, hit the notification button. That way you get notified every week when we drop some new content. Stuff is dropping every day over from the IDP show. So, all right, Drew's got Gibbons or Bolton. Weird to ask, but now I have Gibbons in. Denver's kind of a scary matchup for linebackers, no doubt. But we've seen that offense kind of take steps forward. It's really, really, I personally, Drew, can't trust. I can't trust Gibbons this week. I know that, unless something has come out that I missed about Van Ging or with Gibbons, for sure having that lockdown role over if Baker is inactive again. Yeah, everything that's been kind of said is maybe he'll be active this week versus them. And then if he does that, that could be a really gross rotation there for Gibbons. Yeah, and I know you're saying all the right things too about, it's he's had insane snap share, 100% since the trade, but Baker's been inactive too. There. Looking at Bolton here too, just kind of seeing if what's happening here with him. He's playing, that near 90+% snap share every week. He's the only linebacker there that can say that. Drew Tranquil has been losing snaps a little bit since the beginning of the season. Baker loyalty. Yeah, that could be Kansas City, did they play the late games here? So Baker obviously is at 3:00. Bolton's at noon, so that doesn't help you out. If it were my team, Drew, I would probably have to go with Bolton just because I know that he's going to play. I just can't take that W. I can't take that loss. I can't take a 0 if Jerome Baker's active and then they split time or Gibbons doesn't play at all. And I know what's going to happen right now. Baker will be inactive. Gibbons will go off for a 20-point game on your bench, but I just can't. I can't sit here at 10:00 and say roll out Gibbons without knowing the situation with Baker. So unless something comes up before then, we're gonna have to go there. So clear Shakir Johnson. Shakir's in now. Johnson has been really, really efficient lately. He's been getting some long touchdown looks and things like that. In a PPR, I'm going to go Shakir here, Ryan. Just Josh Allen safety blanket. No Keon Coleman, this week for Buffalo. He's already ruled out. I think he just gets peppered with targets. So all right, Drew, hopefully that's the right call. We'll check back in later on. Yeah, so it's a half-point PPR. So I think that kind of still gives the nod to Shakir for me here, Ryan. I think that, Johnson's got a couple he had one really weird fluky touchdown where he kind of had some broken coverage and got there, which kind of inflates the stats a little bit. But if you look at Shakir week in and week out, he's super consistent, getting peppered with targets. And without Coleman this week there, I think that him and Kincaid are going to be the recipients of the passing game there. Adam wants to know Ivan Pace Jr. or Dan Henley. Dan Henley, 1,000% here. Blake Cashman's coming back off of injury. Ivan Pace Jr. will kind of be sliding back to that 80% role for that defense. He has a shoulder injury or something like that, questionable anyway, or knee, excuse me. So I'm going to lean Dan Henley here 1,000%, especially with Junior Colson going to IR earlier this week, and then Denzel Perryman getting dinged up. Henley's going to be locked in for 100% snap share, so he's definitely going to be the play there. So, all right, we are all caught up on questions. You are most welcome, Ryan. Thank you for everyone that took time, spent their Sunday mornings here with me. Got through a lot of questions. Hopefully we got the right ones for you. Just want to give a shout out to all those men and women who are serving in the armed forces, thanks for your service. We appreciate you every day, but definitely tomorrow we will definitely be taking some time to honor and pay some respects to you guys. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you all you who joined me this morning, and we'll catch up with you next week. Week 11 already. Whew. We're on the back nine of the season here, friends. So best of luck to you in week 10. Hopefully we got all those right calls. Nick Bolton over Jack Gibbons is going to be the hanging over my head all day here today. So we'll chat at you next week, everyone. Thank you again.